Hi, everybody, and welcome back to EBNet Stream. Joint Conduct Standard 2 of 2024 on cybersecurity and resilience is starting to become a very, very popular topic around the trustee meeting table. We are getting some queries around the applicability of this joint conduct standard. So today I thought I'd catch up with Vanessa Jacklin-Levin, who is a partner, and Tshepo Twala, who is an associate at Bowmans. Welcome to EBNet Stream, Tshepo and Vanessa.
Thank you, Natalie.
Thanks, Natalie. Just
Tshepo,
clarification, senior associate now.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, as a senior associate, I'm going to ask you then to start our conversation off by clarifying, who does this joint standard apply to?
Yeah, thanks, Natalie. As we discussed prior to starting off the interview, there's a lot of, rumors, some people saying, the administrators of the pension funds are responsible for compliance with Joint Standard 2. And, that's not particularly factually correct, regardless of a retirement fund is outsourcing of certain administrative activities to their administrators and investment managers. The retirement fund's board of trustees still retains the full responsibility for, firstly, ensuring that the retirement fund complies with the requirements set out in Joint Standard 2, and also, secondly, for ensuring that the oversight of the retirement fund's cyber risk management policy is carried out, and the joint standard does permit the board of trustees to delegate the primary oversight activities to an existing or new committee, but the responsibility to carry out oversight on the cyber risk management of the retirement fund rests with the board of trustees, and just to expand the point, the retirement fund's board of trustees hold a fiduciary duty to act in the best interest of the beneficiaries of the fund. And lastly, they have the responsibility of managing and safeguarding the assets of the retirement fund. And yeah, board of trustees are required to manage retirement funds with high level of care, by making informed decisions and ensuring compliance, with various legal instruments such as Joint Standard 2. And yeah, they have to manage and mitigate all the associated risks as well in the retirement fund.
I want to go into a little bit more detail around that, because I think everybody agrees that the board of trustees is responsible for it. But how does that extend to the service providers? And by that I mean, there is this belief that the fund practically has a policy. It asks some questions of its service providers. The service providers answer those questions and the fund is compliant. I mean, is it as easy as that, or is it each service provider both needs to be compliant and be in a position to answer questions?
Yeah. I mean, to the extent that, for example, administrators are themselves caught by Joint Standard 2. So in their own right, they are supposed to carry out all the obligations set out in Joint Standard 2, but as part of the due diligence of the retirement fund, obviously they is ask certain specific questions in order to ensure that they comply with their own cybersecurity obligations in the joint standard. But, principle applies, to banks, investment managers, in that, in the case of banks and investment managers, the board of directors of a bank or investment manager retains the full responsibility for ensuring that the bank and investment manager complies with the requirements set out in Joint Standard 2. So it's not sufficient to just say, I asked, as part of a due diligence, I asked the administrator whether they comply X, Y, Z. It's still the obligation of the retirement fund itself to ensure that all the requirements that are applicable to the retirement fund under the Joint Standard 2 are complied with.
Thank you. And I suppose the big $1 million question then is, Vanessa, what must be in place by the 1st of June 2025?
A lot. There's a lot that needs to be in place. So a lot of work that needs to be done in the next 3 months. To remember also, the joint standard objective is for financial institutions to adopt a robust cybersecurity policy, but also to implement it and to be resilient. So it's not a tick box exercise. This is something that one has to develop to have in place by the 1st of June, but there's still a lot of work to be done after the 1st of June to implement all of these aspects. So firstly, there has to be a clear definition of roles and responsibilities of all management functions, as well as committees established in order to exercise oversight of cyber risks within your financial institution. You need to establish a cybersecurity strategy. And what we recommend is that you do that together with experts, with your attorneys, and with your technical experts on cybersecurity to ensure that it's a robust strategy and practical for your financial institution. You need to establish, maintain, and regularly review that strategy as well. So it's not enough just to develop it and put it in your top drawer. You have to conduct risk assessments and maintain an inventory on critical operations and information assets. So an example of a risk assessment may be that you do a trial. You get an IT expert in to do a trial, to do a mock cyber attack and see how resilient your system is, and learn from that process and do better next time. You need to ensure that any access to information is limited to users and devices. Develop data loss prevention policies. Implement endpoint protection to prevent malware infection. Maintain written security standards for hardware and software. Maintain capabilities to monitor, detect, and respond and recover from cyber attacks. Recovery from cyber attacks is fundamentally important. It is more likely that a cyber attack will happen than it won't happen. So, you need to know that as part of your strategy, what you do when there's an attack and how you recover from that attack as quickly as possible. Maintain capabilities, establish and maintain a data backup strategy, which also goes back to the previous point of being able to recover from the cyber attack. And then also educate and create awareness within your financial institution about cyber attacks, about cybersecurity, what everyone should be doing. Because we find in practice that there's always a human element when it comes to cyber attacks. There's somebody who said something or did something that they weren't supposed to do without thinking, usually completely innocently, and it opens the door to these cyber criminals. So, all in all, there's a lot of steps to follow in order to comply with the joint standard. And we strongly suggest that these financial institutions, and in particular the trustees, take expert advice on how to comply with each one of these points in order to make sure that they are sustainable and not just a tick box exercise.
Sure. So sustainability is a very important point. And as the governance burden becomes more and more, I think we're trying to see trustees maybe hand over this baby to their administrators. But I think, and please correct me if my understanding is wrong, but the fund itself needs to have a policy and all the things that you've just described. And every administrator of the fund needs to have its policy and framework and all the things that you have described. So it's not okay. So it's not just a case of, oh, our administrator's compliant, therefore we are compliant. And as you were talking, the one thing that I thought about was a trustee who may have his or her emails coming to his or her cell phone. For me, there is the opportunity of a cyber attack that is outside of the administration system and rather within the fund environment. Is that a good way of looking at it?
That's a great example, exactly. And that also goes back to why the awareness and education around it is also so important. So you understand where all the risks are and what you can do to mitigate those risks, wherever you are, whether you're on your laptop in your office or whether you're on your cell phone in your car or wherever you are. Your responsibility, unfortunately, doesn't stop just the moment you leave the office for the day.
Yeah, or that your administrators, sent you a copy of their policy.
Yeah, exactly.
And is it wise advice to map out all your fund service providers, and kind of make sure that they are all compliant?
Tshepo?
I'm thinking, for example, your investment managers. Yes, you're nodding?
Yes. Could you just please rephrase the question again? I think the network glitch caught me there as well.
No problem. No problem. My question is around the scope that the trustees need to apply themselves to, and really around, it's not good enough that it's just the administrator. We should be looking for answers from providers like our investment managers, possibly our insurers, bankers, auditors. Oh, you're nodding. So the list just keeps growing.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the list is endless, and that's quite correct. For example, FSPs are also caught by the joint standard, and most of the investment managers are FSPs. So it's yeah. I mean, the compliance with joint standard 2 by an investment manager doesn't abrogate the responsibility of the retirement fund in their own right to ensure compliance. So yeah, it's I think it's in the market. There's quite a lot of confusion in that respect. So there's a separation of the obligations, and each entity or each juristic person that is caught under the joint standard has to ensure compliance. For example, trustees as well in a trust context have to comply. Board of directors in a company context have to comply. So it's not sufficient to just say, oh, look, I have an administrator to administer the fund, and so I'll just sit back and watch. So yeah, but like Vanessa said, that's where the importance of obtaining appropriate legal advice comes in. So I think that would also encourage all entities that are caught under joint standard 2, to reach out to skilled experts in the industry to ensure that, by the time the 1st of June comes in, then they're up to speed.
I'm going to ask one last question, and it may be a little bit tricky, but as you were speaking, Tshepo, I was thinking about some of the scenarios where an administrator or service provider might subcontract another administrator or service provider. If that subcontracted party is included in the definition of financial institution, I'm assuming the same thing applies.
Yes, that's why I'm glad you may come and just replace me here at Bowmans, Natalie, because it's very up to it's very up to what you're saying, So for as long as you're caught, whether you're subcontracting or it's just the first level primary outsourcing arrangement, you still comply for as long as you fall within the definition of the entities that are caught under the joint standard. So it's not sufficient to just abrogate the responsibility.
Just for clarity for our viewers, I wouldn't join as a senior associate. I'd be a junior associate. Vanessa Jacklin-Levin, thank you for taking the time to talk to me this afternoon. I appreciate your input, and I'm sure we'll be chatting again before the 1st of June. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very much, Nathan. I appreciate it.